Hello, everyone, and welcome to an emergency podcast of Lords of Limited. Boop, 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 boop. We are in danger. Welcome, everyone. My name is Ben Werney, and joining me on the line, as always, Mr. Ethan Sachs. Ethan, is draft dead?
Ben, I'm coming to you live from the field right now, and I can assure you it is looking bleak down here on the streets of Twitter.
Your background's all dark. It's never been like that before. It's reflecting the mood here.
Exactly. Yeah. So I got to say, Ben, I'm sick of hearing my voice. I'm sick of hearing your voice. We recorded yesterday morning. I edited yesterday. I edited the video today. But we're back with an emergency podcast, which we have only done once before. Usually, as limited players, we get to just sit back and bask in the warm glow of our beautiful format and watch as secret layers and whatever. I don't even know what they are. I honestly, before we get into this, I'm not really even sure I could tell you what a set booster or a collector booster even is.
I'm fairly confident I could describe that.
Good for you. I definitely could not. But we've only ever had to come in for an emergency pod for limited once in our 6+ years of podcasting. And that is when the companions got nerfed.
Ooh, yeah, I remember that.
When they fixed the companions, we got in the booth and we said, all right, what does this mean for limited? And we have a huge, or at least that's what they're telling us, a huge change coming for limited. What's going on, Ben?
We have the elimination of draft boosters, and they are being replaced with something called play boosters. That's sort of kind of a happy medium, supposedly, between draft boosters and set boosters. That's what we're feeling them as. That's what we're being told.
That's what we're being told. So there's an article released today, that's October 16th, announcing play boosters. So we have set boosters and draft boosters merging into one, and that will be starting with Murders at Karlov Manor. So lucky boy, my first Pro Tour draft.
You at the Pro Tour, yeah.
I mean, I'm total. The picture I will paint is that I do not find this to be gloom and doom at all. I think this is largely going to be fine, but that doesn't get the clicks, so we won't start there. But yeah, so this will not be taking place for Lost Caverns of Ixalan. This won't be taking place for the Ravnica remastered, I guess, set is coming out at the end of the year. Those two sets will be regular draft boosters, but then moving forward, 2024, we're going to have these new play boosters. So I'm going to give some sort of quick and dirty points from the article. We'll certainly have a link where you check out this episode. If you haven't read the full article, highly recommend you do so, form your own opinions, whatever. But here are the sort of fast and loose points. So set boosters were very popular, more popular than draft boosters. It created many issues. It eclipsed draft boosters, caused inventory problems. I don't even know the difference between draft and collector and set boosters. It caused confusion in the marketplace. And most importantly for us, it began the abandonment of draft boosters.
I would just like to say these were all self-inflicted wounds by Wizards of the Coast. Like, of course, set boosters are going to be more popular than draft boosters because by the creation of set boosters, the only reason to buy draft boosters is to draft because set boosters are higher EV. So they're saying set boosters are more popular. Of course, Magic players are EV creatures, and people are going to make the higher EV play. So yes, you're making draft boosters go by the wayside. That's obvious. Inventory problems caused by you. You created two different boosters for stores to stock. So they're like billing this as like, we're rescuing Magic, but they're rescuing Magic from the poop storm that they caused.
Yeah, so I think there's two things there. One is it definitely does feel like that, like the hot dog car meme from my favorite sketch comedy show where it's like, we're all trying to find the guy who did this. And it's like, you're the guy clearly who did this. But I do think in defense of, Morrow, who I think is taking quite a bit of heat today on Twitter and the rest of R&D, like, I think there's a disconnect between Wizards and Hasbro. I think Hasbro and we all are just guessing at this point, but my feeling is that Hasbro just like looks at the bottom line and sees that set boosters are more popular than draft boosters. They seem to be the ones pushing all of this extra product and whatever. And I get it. Look, it's a company, it's a business. You got to make money. But yes, I agree. Like, it's like, well, clearly because of the introduction of set boosters and this delineation, the only reason to buy draft boosters was to draft, right? So
yes, absolutely.
Why would anyone else do anything else? So set boosters as the more popular item, again, sort of self-inflicted, the issues needed to be addressed for draft. So like they sort of said in the article, like it wasn't like we were going to marry the two. It was more like, how do we make set boosters draftable? Because draft boosters are going away. So they have to increase the card number from 12. There are only 12 cards in set boosters. They have to balance the colors because that wasn't a consideration prior to that. There was actually, I think, even a sort of like often a theme among the cards in set boosters. See, I
You
know
say like
something.
you frequently open set boosters.
Yes, I think I've read in some periodicals. Rarity ratios would have to shift for draft, and the biggest change is, as he said, this would just change how we made sets. So here's the big thing that I think people are sort of up in arms about is we've seen this graphic. I'm sure we'll put this in the YouTube video. The graphic of what the breakdown of the packs are, of what a booster is going to look like now. And there's actually some slight differences. I'm not going to get into that just because I don't actually quite understand it. And I think it's largely not going to matter. There's differences currently with the announcement for paper boosters and the announcement for arena boosters. There's going to be a slight different composition just in terms of like the pool of cards that the random slots pull from. So we're just going to be talking about paper boosters here. So big shift, 3 less commons. We have slots 1 through 6, as they say, are commons. So only 6 commons.
Guaranteed,
Slots,
right? We'll have a
guaranteed.
chance of more commons than that.
Right. Like, so I think the thing, we'll go through this list and then we'll give our sort of takes on this. So slots 1 through 6, commons. Slot 7 is coming from the list.
Which previously used to be like 1,000 cards or 300
Yes.
cards, or quite large, and it seems like it is going to be significantly smaller now that these are made for draft play.
I believe 40. I believe, yeah, it was about 300 plus prior, and the list is now going to be 40. So slot 7 will either be the list, a card from the list, or a common. And it will actually be mostly a common. It's going to be a common 7 out of 8 times, 87.5%. So to give you an idea, at a draft table of 8 people, 3 on average. 3 cards in the slot at the table will be the list cards. It's pretty negligible. So we could basically think of it as a 7th common. Then we get to slots 8 through 10. Those are your uncommons, so 3 uncommons per pack still. Slot 11 is a rare or a mythic. Great, that seems normal. Slot 12 is either a basic land or a common land from the main set, right? If there's like a duel or whatever, then that'll be in that slot. Slot 13, we have non-foil wildcard, and slot 14 is foil wildcard. Not quite clear on what this is. It seems to me to largely be, again, I think like that slot 7 of it's going to be the list, but usually it's going to be a common. I think these wild cards can pull from some other kinds of lists, but will almost always be cards from the set. And I think, well, then that means largely be commons. So we can sort of think of this as slot 8 and 9 common most of the time. And then slot 15 is going to be like an ad card or a token. So the big differences. -1 playable card. I'm going to talk about that. So there's now only 14 cards per booster instead of 15. Someone, Stunlock, let me know that we're going to have to start calling the episodes the full 42 if we want to do a full draft log. So it's good to know. -3 commons, but -3 commons guaranteed. And then this additional, whatever, non-foil wild card, additional traditional foil wild card, 1 in 8 opportunity of getting a card from the list, and then 1 in 3 opportunity of an art card. Okay, Ben, the floor is yours. What are your thoughts here about? Let's start with. Well, I'll let you start wherever you want to start.
I'll start with just my initial reaction to the announcement, which was, please leave my things alone. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I mean, like, not a great initial impression. I think after reading the article and seeing some stuff in our Discord, and I think, they're framing it as saving limited magic, but again, saving it from themselves. But I do think that the stewards over at Wizard of the Coast care about magic a lot and care about limited magic a lot. And I think that comes across in the article when you read the article. So, I mean, I have high hopes for limited magic. It will almost certainly be different than what we are used to. I think probably the closest comparison would be things like March of the Machine, or maybe the redone Innistrad remastered, where we had like the rotating list. And like, I loved both of those things quite a bit. So if it is similar to that, like, I'm cautiously optimistic, maybe, with just the caveat of that I love Magic very much the way it is now, and any kind of change is scary for me. I don't like change much as a human being.
Yes. So speaking of the March of the Machine comparison, which I think is pretty apt, Sirkovitz did a great breakdown on Twitter. If I remember, I'll also link that here. A great thread, and it does look to be pretty similar, the makeup of packs from March of the Machine. One of the things that I don't know if I have this a little later in our notes, but it's been brought up there. I think Morrow has been doing a sort of Q&A, a rolling Q&A online today. And one of the things brought up is that they will be, I think, just actually designing fewer commons and more uncommons now based on this pack composition. And so that's the big thing I think that's going to be different for limited. I'm actually much less concerned. I mean, I'm not concerned at all, honestly, about this, but I'm much less focused on the whatever this like, oh, we're pulling from the list and these wild cards. Like it just seems like that's the juice for the set booster people. Fine. Give them some juice. I don't care. Like honestly, the thing that I think a lot of people are missing about this is how many more people are gonna be wanting to draft. Like all these people who just wanted to like open set boosters, like then they'll be like, oh, I could like I could play a game with these. Okay, cool. I'll do that. And does that mean like is that markedly going to impact you and me? Maybe not, but like that may get more people drafting at FNMs or at their LGSs or whatever, or showing up for side events at, Magic Cons. I don't know. Like, I definitely think people may be getting interested in more limited stuff on Arena or on Magic Online. I don't know, but I think like that's a net, as far as I can tell, and we haven't gotten to the price aspect of it, but that part of it is a net positive, I think. Go ahead. You want to talk about price?
No, sure. What I was going to say, a net positive at an increased cost, which I think is, raising the barrier to entry. Like Magic's already an expensive hobby, et cetera, et
Mm-hmm.
cetera. And now it's getting a little more expensive. But I do think also, I mean, is it like how people that wanted to, I guess new people trying is great. Like people having an opportunity to play limited more is great, but it is going to be more expensive.
It is going to be more expensive. So we can talk about that now, which is that it's not like it's going to be a medium. It's not like it's going to be, well, this is the same thing that play boosters are draftable. So it's going to cost what a draft booster cost. No, they're going to cost what set boosters cost, which is about 25% more than a draft booster, or so 25% more of a booster box of play boosters is going to cost that much more than draft boosters. So yeah, what's up?
Episode brought to you by CoolStuffInc.com, where they've got cool stuff in stock. Now is the time, folks. Doomsday is coming. Get those draft boosters while you can. The classics, store them in the closet.
Your closet better be full of these useless draft boosters. Okay, so we've addressed some big questions. Will the product be more expensive? Yes. The big questions addressed in the article. Will draft be less fun? R&D believes not. R&D believes not. They said the sets have been designed and balanced with draft boosters in mind.
Yeah, my gut is, like I said, cautiously optimistic. I would like to take them at their word for that. I trust the people that design Magic sets. They've been doing a banger job. And again, I'm always wary of change. That's just my inclination as a human being, but cautiously optimistic.
I know this is the big concern on everyone's mind. Are there going to be more bombs in limited formats? Am I going to have to face gruff triplets 4 times as much as normal? Well, the answer that R&D says, the answer in Mara's article, is there will be more cards of rare and mythic power level, but this is part of R&D's calculus in designing these sets. Now, let's talk about. We're going to jump ahead real quick. We'll talk about sealed in a second, but
Who
why only?
cares? Sealed schmealed.
That is truly how I feel. All of the. I'm gonna say it. I mean, as I'm like the boomers. I'm saying this in air quotes on YouTube.
Wow.
Like, because I'm a boomer. Like these people are
You're
my
a PT
age.
now. You're a boomer.
No, but I just mean like I'm 36. Like these people are the same age, a few years older than me or whatever. I never feel more of a disconnect when everyone's like, well, but sealed is a terrible form. I'm like, who truly in God's name cares about the quality of sealed? Like, if anything, like hopefully, like, I mean, I guess it probably can't, but maybe this pushes, certainly on Arena. Does this push the opens and the MCQs to be draft?
That would be incredible.
Wouldn't that be great? But all we can focus on is the bad. All we can focus on is the bad. Let's talk about sealed. Sealed, is it dead? Is it terrible now? Someone, look, you could show up and you could open 6 rares, and someone else opens 24 rares. Can you believe it?
Yeah, continuing the memes, you had the hot dog meme earlier. This is It Always Was. The gun pointing at the moon.
Right? So you are truly more likely to win the lottery than you are to open 24 rares in your sealed pool. The most common number of rares is going to be 8 or 9 at a 25% frequency. And this is based on whatever. I leave this to the wizards, the true wizards out there who are making these calculations. To give folks an idea, for my sealed runs in the Arena Championship qualifier, I opened 7 rares on day 1 and 8 rares on day 2. So this is about what's happening now, in normal draft boosters. So 8 or 9 rares, most common, then 10, 7, and 11. And then the rest is very unlikely. It is very unlikely for you to open an astronomical number of rares in your sealed pool.
Well, and also, they were talking about the designing for it. One of the things in the article it said was they're boosting up common removal, common interaction,
Yes.
and designing the rares and mythics and the common interaction with those things in mind, that they will be answerable, because I think, like us, they don't want them to dominate the format.
Yeah, so that brings us to the why only 14 cards. And I really liked one of the answers in the article was Morrow saying the reason boosters have 15 cards in them is because they've always had 15 cards in them, which is my favorite answer for why something should change. Like whenever
tradition.
Whenever the answer is, well, we've always done it that way, I'm like, sounds like we should probably change it. So I appreciated that as the answer. And I also appreciated, I think there are 2 sides to this coin as we get into sort of the nitty gritty. I saw some great takes from Jason Ye on Twitter about they have a really strong affinity for maximizing, no commons are truly unplayable, like that they really found that they were, especially in a sealed pool, like mining the depths of their sealed pool for, I'm really going to be playing all these cards. And they said maybe there were only a couple commons in the set that they never played in the lifetime of the format, etc. I'm a little less lenient with commons. I think we can cut. Certainly there's a real unplayable or replacement level tier, let's call them, of commons that I'm not going to miss. I don't feel like they really add a lot to the format. And so I'm pretty optimistic that eliminating that sort of real bulk filler chaff with this thoughtful mentality is going to be, I'm hoping, if not net neutral, net positive for limited.
Yeah, it'll be different, right? Which is okay. I mean, there's a certain satisfaction for the time you need to play the 0-4 wall that you can sack and draw a card and make a roll token. And you find that 1 out of 30 drafts where that card's great in your deck. But the format's not going to be different without that card in it, really,
So who is it different for? That's the big question that I'm wondering. Will we feel an appreciable difference with this?
Certainly if it's like March of the Machine, because that felt significantly different from a normal limited format, right?
Yes.
I would expect, yes, that limited will feel different. Not necessarily less fun, but different.
Yeah. And not I think it's also important to remember March of the Machine, and part of this was the bonus sheet having some nostalgia, right? It wasn't just just artifacts or just enchantments. It was just sort of legendary cool stuff from across Magic's history. But I think despite the double rares or possibility for, and then there was the battle slot, right? So you just had the possibility for opening a bunch of rares, a bunch of uncommons. I remember people telling one of the things that folks were asking me about a certain deck was well, do you feel like it relies too much on uncommons? And I'm like, the whole pack is uncommons. What do I care about commons for in this format? And if we're shifting there, we'll have to see what that means in terms of, as they call it, the as fan of boosters, what we'll feel like we're seeing draft in and draft out. But they're still commons. They're still the most frequent things. And even though the sort of headline is, there's only 6 per pack, you're only guaranteed 6 per pack. You are probably going to see 9 per pack most of the time.
Right. Well, and also I think the number one talking point seems to be the number of rares per mythics. I've seen less scuttle on Twitter and in our Discord about the wildcard slots and the list and things like that. And if they do the list right, I mean, could add a ton of depth and a ton of replayability. I mean, like the Enchanting Tale slot from WoW largely, I think, fell flat. But if you
Mm-hmm.
think back to Shadows over Innistrad remastered on Arena, like it felt significantly different when they rotated cards. And
Yeah.
granted, it won't be rotating, but that's a real opportunity to include, if they're caring about limited and they're saying they're curating the list for limited as well, like a
So I
great
think
opportunity to include build arounds and things like that.
you mean the list,
Oh,
right?
excuse me, the
Yeah.
list.
And I think there was some speculation today while like before the Morrow Q&A was happening about, oh, so that means the bonus sheets were like a test for the list. And now we won't see bonus sheets anymore. Not the case. Bonus sheets are a separate thing. So we're going to have the list in these
Oof.
packs. And then we may also have bonus sheets. And that's what if currently these play boosters feel like March of the Machine. I don't know what March of the Machine plus another bonus sheet will feel like. Um, my big takeaway here, and I know you'll appreciate this, and maybe two other of our listeners will as well. I'm a huge fan of Survivor, and one of the things that I think the show Survivor does very well is it innovates and adapts and introduces new game mechanics, and it's one of the things that Magic does great as well. And they switch things up. They switch things up in a kind of aggressive manner that like the viewership is not always happy with, the fan base is not always happy with, but they take the feedback and they shift. They keep the stuff that seems to work, or if something like if they have a strong feeling about something, they're like, "Hey, we're going to try it out one more time, see if we can't make it work, whatever." And then if it doesn't, they let it go. I really trust R&D, especially with like the way it seems like this was perhaps the idea that draft boosters were going away as an inevitability, maybe that was true in terms of just like and perhaps as you said a product of their own design with the set boosters, but that the future of draft booster was untenable, and that this seems like a workaround. Like they're like, look, limited is important, it's a core aspect of this game, we need to keep it alive. How do we get that to happen? And that if the play boosters, I don't expect everything about the play boosters to be incredible right off the bat, but I also expect there to be a conversation between the player base and R&D about them.
Yeah, I do think Wizards is nothing if not receptive to feedback. And I agree, a lot of the pushes for change and money and all those sorts of things seem to be coming from Hasbro. And I, again, would largely say these have seemed like self-inflicted wounds that they are trying to heal. But the voice of Marrow, if you read the article, seems to care a lot about the future of Limited staying intact. And anybody that has the mindset of caring about what I care about and building a future for it, regardless of how that future was jeopardized, like I'm here for, and I trust in R&D. So I think cautiously optimistic, as I've said.
I'm very upset. I thought we were going to butt heads. I thought you were going to show up and you were going to say Magic's over, the podcast is done, we had a good run, but you've been much more level-headed. What Fall Break has done something to you.
No, I just time. Like when you first sent me the link to that article, I had this sinking pit in my stomach for about 30 minutes and then read a lot of reactions to it and thought about it throughout the day while I was cleaning my apartment. And I think, a day of time has given me some perspective. And Matt, like something terrible would have to happen to Magic for the podcast to
Yes.
end or for me to not love it. Like, I expect this will probably be slightly different. I expect that I will probably still love it with the same fervor that I love Magic right now. And if nothing, like just talking to you, the last podcast we recorded, how much I care about Magic and Limited and Draft, like it would be very hard to take that away.
Yeah,
So
that's
I would like to see them try. So even if they were hell bent on messing this up,
wow.
it would be a tough order.
Did you just throw the gauntlet? You're like, I dare you to make me stop liking Magic. Don't do that. If you're listening out there, don't do that. Um, yeah, I think my big takeaway, and this I didn't think about this or didn't internalize this myself because I don't play hardly any paper at all, and currently there haven't been any price increases announced for Arena, though it's certainly possible that that's on the table. But the price increases that's a real thing. That's a real detriment. And I hope that, I mean, it's probably just like there's a bottom line and that's not going to go away. I hope that maybe in terms of creating draft events or whatever at LGSs, that WOTC can work with their flagship stores and work something out to maybe make the prize support a little better for those tournaments or something like that. But the price going up is a bummer. But everything else, I feel like in terms of the gameplay aspect, I'm not even cautiously optimistic. I'm just optimistic.
Optimistic. Wow, what a guy. Embracing change. You're much more flexible than I am. I would like to say too, in defense of the cost going up, I mean, that's happening everywhere in the world right now, right? Like, it's not like Magic is getting bumped up and nothing. Like, you go to the grocery store and it's like, whew, I remember when this was $2 and now it's $3.50, you know? Like,
Yeah.
it's happening everywhere in the world. So, I mean, it kind of makes sense that Magic
Well,
is
luckily
following suit.
everyone's wages are increasing as well.
Absolutely.
So that's at least that's
everything up.
at least compensation is commensurate. All right. Well, look, Ben, I nothing against you, but I hope we don't have to record a podcast again tomorrow. But you know, if Wizards walks all this back, we'll be back in the studio. Don't you worry.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll catch you next week for another episode of Lords of Limited.
Thanks, everybody. See you later.